These are canceled Marvel movies that would have been amazing. It will forever be a tragedy that we never got Channing Tatum starring in his own solo Gambit movie, because this thing was in production for so many years and had so many possible release dates. The first one was actually planned to come out in 2016. The film actually had started working on different versions of the script and had a director in Rupert Wyatt, who was the director of the Rise of the Planet of the Apes movies, so they had everything on board. But after the movie started going through several different versions of the script and nothing seemed to be sticking, Rupert Wyatt actually ended up leaving the movie and they had to replace the director, and the 2016 release date was just not realistic anymore. Then they ended up finding Gore Verbinski to be the new director on the project. He's most known for the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. The movie seemed like it had life again. They were going to release in 2018 was a plan, but then it got delayed to 2019 because, again, problems with the script. But by 2019 it ended up being too late because Fox got bought by Disney. And since the movie had already gone through multiple scripts and directors and never got moved forward, once Disney bought Fox, they ended up just shelving the film for good. It's really heartbreaking, and a few years later Channing Tatum came out with this quote saying, "Once Gambit went away, I was so traumatized I shut off my Marvel machine. I haven't been able to see any of the movies. I love the character. It was too sad. It was like losing a friend because I was so ready to play him." So while it does seem like we're never going to get that solo Channing Tatum movie of him being Gambit, at least we did get to see him play the character finally. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4 is one that I really wish we got to see because they were so far along in the production of this movie. Like, they had a script pretty much ready to go and they were pretty much ready to start filming. They had multiple people cast that I'm going to get into, but then we know they canceled it and ended up rebooting it for the Andrew Garfield movies, which I'm not the biggest fan of, and I really wish we got this instead. First thing we know about this movie is that the Vulture was going to be the villain of this film, with John Malkovich playing him, which I absolutely loved Michael Keaton playing the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, but this I honestly think might have even been better. This seems like a perfect fit for Adrian Toomes. But that's just the very tip of the iceberg for this movie, because we also know that Angelina Jolie was in talks to play Adrian Toomes' daughter, and she was going to be another kind of like Vulture type character, being another antagonist in the film. And this movie was going to finally give us Black Cat in live action, which is a character we still haven't seen in a movie ever since this got canceled, but they actually already cast Anne Hathaway. She was ready to play the role. I feel like this truly could have been an amazing Spider-Man movie. Having Black Cat with this older version of Spider-Man would have been a perfect fit, kind of causing some problems between him and MJ maybe, and then having the Vulture as the villain in this film, I would have loved to see what Sam Raimi cooked up with his version of the character. But speaking of Spider-Man movies, obviously we know Tobey is not the only one that had his movies canceled on him. Andrew Garfield never got that amazing Spider-Man 3, but there were insane plans for it, and even a Sinister Six movie that was going to take place before Spider-Man 3. So in this Sinister Six kind of prequel origin story movie, we were going to follow this character named the Gentleman, and what he was essentially going to be is this guy that has a lot of ties to Oscorp, but then when Norman Osborn dies in these movies, he was going to actually go and revive him in this film. After reviving Norman Osborn, he was going to go get a bunch of other villains together and kind of form up this team with the plan of killing Spider-Man, obviously forming the Sinister Six, so he would have been like the mastermind behind this whole thing. I think this was a really cool concept for a character, actually. I do believe he briefly existed in the comics, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm not familiar with him at all, so if you are, let me know in the comments. But we know that Norman Osborn was far from the only character that was planned to be brought back to life in these movies, because in The Amazing Spider-Man 3, we got an inside look because of an interview with Dennis Leary, who played Captain Stacy in these movies, that a lot of other characters were gonna come back, including him. Because in an interview where he was talking about the Amazing Spider-Man movies, he actually said he was disappointed because he was planned to be brought back because this version of Peter Parker was going to actually form a formula that could have brought his loved ones back to life. Which definitely connects to some things that we got from the leaked info a while back, that plans of Gwen Stacy coming back to life were going to happen in this movie. Now, I gotta be honest, I do like this moment. Obviously, it's heartbreaking, but I think having them all brought back to life would have kind of cheapened the story a little bit, but I would have been interested to see how it played out no matter what. It definitely seems like this was taking inspiration from the Clone Saga comics, where a lot of similar things and a lot of the same characters come back to life. So whether it would have been good or not, I really don't know, but it would have been interesting to see what happened with this character, and I think we can all agree that Andrew did deserve more movies. One that's a real shame that we never got is the X-Men versus the Fantastic Four crossover movie that Fox was planning. This was going to actually take place after X-Men First Class, with that new younger version of the X-Men characters and the Fantastic Four from those movies, like Chris Evans and all them. We know a little bit about the plot of this one because the script is actually pretty decently far along. We know that Mr. Johnny Storm himself was going to have some incident with Nova that caused a ton of damage in downtown Manhattan. And because of all this damage that went down, it would have led to a superhero restriction act being proposed, and then both the X-Men and Fantastic Four would be on opposite sides. Now, if you're thinking this sounds very familiar, yeah, this is pretty much what we got in Captain America Civil War, just with different characters. This time it would have been pretty much Wolverine and Mr. Fantastic instead of Iron Man and Cap, and them having their own teams around them and the two battling it out throughout this movie. I think this actually could have been an absolute banger of a film, and I'm so sad that they canceled it. I also know this movie was going to have characters like Daredevil coming back. If it was Ben Affleck or not, we don't know. And they were also going to have Deadpool in this movie, which was going to be way before the first Deadpool solo film. So that would have been really interesting to see how things would have changed if this had actually happened. Now, after the success of X-Men First Class and how much people like these new versions of the character, they decided, hey, let's just go with the safer and simpler route and do X-Men Days of Future Past as our new crossover movie with both generations of X-Men. Guillermo del Toro and Neil Gaiman actually pitched a Doctor Strange movie back before the MCU even ever happened in 2007, which was 1 year before Iron Man was made. And honestly, I think that kind of fantasy horror vibe that Guillermo has in his movies would have been a perfect fit for this character, and the origin story that they were planning sounds pretty interesting. It was going to take place in 1920s instead of the current day, and it was going to follow Doctor Strange being this kind of drunken doctor that's kind of given up on life, and it leads him to the mystic arts and him trying to become the Sorcerer Supreme. But once he enters that world, he realizes he no longer fits into either world, so it further leads to him just feeling like he's an outcast and doesn't fit in anywhere, and furthering his drinking problem. Now, this is definitely kind of similar to what we got, but definitely has a different twist, and I think it would have been something really interesting to see fully fleshed out. And like I said, I think just the visual style of his movie would have been incredible. There have been so many attempted times to get a Hulk solo movie made. They were going to make an Incredible Hulk 2, but things with Universal and stuff did not work out, especially when Ed Norton was replaced. And then they were going to try to make a Mark Ruffalo solo Hulk movie. That didn't work out either. And there's really just been so many Hulk canceled movies to count. It's sad that we only got this Incredible Hulk and never expanded on it. I think a Mark Ruffalo solo Hulk movie would truly be great. I hope we get one day. A lot of people know that Angelina Jolie was actually rumored to play Black Widow in her first MCU appearance in Iron Man 2, but a lot of people don't know that there was originally a Black Widow script being developed back in 2002 for a solo Black Widow film, and she was actually being eyed to star in the film. But sadly, this is one of those movies that really never just got past the pre-production phase and a few loose ideas. Like I said, she was never actually officially cast. She was just eyed for the role, but I think this would have been a really interesting take on the character, and probably a really bad movie back in 2002 if we're being honest. Let me know in the comments which one of these you wish got made the most. For me, I think it has to be the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 4, but there's so many great options here to choose from, and hit like and subscribe for more.